Hello everyone and welcome back to the MTG's Novels Project. The MTG Novels Project is available both on YouTube and as a podcast version. Check the description for more details. A legal note. This is an unofficial audiobook with original content belonging to Wizards of the Coast. This content is covered under the 2017 Wizards of the Coast fan content policy. Listener discretion is advised. Today, we are continuing with Chapter 11 of Planeswalker by Lynn, Abbey. The supplies were stowed, safe against mice, mist, and anything else the changeable climate of the Ohan Ridge might drop on the cottage. Xantcha had checked them twice during the indeterminate night. She'd made herself a pot of tea and drunk it all. The herbs should have helped her relax, but they didn't. Dodd's golden light fell sideways on the bed where she hadn't slept. Her door was wide open, inviting shadows. Urza's wasn't. It wasn't warded with the layers of leave-me-alone sorcery, but it wasn't leaking sound. The sounds had stopped coming through the wall in the unmeasured hours after midnight. Retepe, Xantcha had told herself, had probably fallen asleep, and Urza rarely made noise when he was alone. Nothing unusual, nothing to worry about. So why had she opened her door? Why had she spent the last of the night damp and shivering? Hadn't Retepe demonstrated, if not an ability to take care of himself, then an inclination to ignore her advice? And hadn't Urza welcomed Retepe more enthusiastically than she dared hope? Whatever had brought silence to the far side of the wall, it wouldn't have been murder. No matter how annoying Retepe got, he'd survive. Xantcha unwound her blankets. Her joints creaked. Frexio was easier on flesh and bone than the Ohan Ridge. She broke the ice in her washstand, cleared her head with a few breath-taking splashes, then went outside and listened at the door. She'd give them until midday. If Retepe hadn't reappeared by then, Xantcha planned to take a chisel to the cottage common wall. Before that, she had one more gambit to try, and put her chisel to work on the hardened ashes underneath her outside door hearth. When the fire was just right, Xantcha covered it with an iron grate, and covered the grate with a rasher of bacon. A friendly breeze carried the aroma into the cottage. She never knew when or if Urza would be in the mood to eat, but if Retepe was alive, he yelled to be out the door before the bacon burned. Right on schedule, Retepe arrived in the doorway. By the book, that smells good. He didn't have the cross-grained look of a man who'd just been awakened, and he said something. Xantcha couldn't hear what, over his shoulder before closing the door behind him. "I'm starving." "I see you survived." Xantcha hadn't realized how angry she was until she heard her own voice. "Here, eat. Start tomorrow, you can cook your own." On his own heart, too, Xantcha wasn't sharing, at least not till she calmed down. Retepe had the sense to approach her cautiously. "You're angry about last night?" Xantcha slammed hot, crisp bacon on a wooden platter and thrust at him. She didn't know why she was so upset. Didn't want to discuss the matter. "I guess I got out of hand when I saw him. Urza. He is Urza. The Urza. Urza the Artificer. You were right, you know. Back in Ephraim Prakar, I didn't believe you. I thought maybe you thought he was Urza, but I think that he could be the Urza. The, by the holy book, Artificer." Retepe paused long enough to inhale a piece of bacon. "I thought I'd been as scared as I could get before I met you. But that was before he touched me. Avolvir. I swear I'll never be afraid again. Don't make promises you can't keep." "There can't be anything scarier." Retepe shook his head and shoved another piece in his mouth. This time he chewed before swallowing. She was about to criticize him hours, but he was too fast for her. "He's Urza. Urza is Urza, the real Urza, and I'm Mishra. I'm talking to a legend, watching things, hearing things I can't imagine, because Urza the Artificer, stray of the Antiquity Wars, thinks I'm his brother, Mishra, the Mighty, Mishra the Destroyer. We're about to put what's wrong back to rights again." Another pause. More bacon. More bad manners. But then he hadn't had manners before. His face was flushed and his eyes had never stopped moving. I'm Mishra. Avo here. I'm Mishra. He tries to trick me sometimes. Says things he won't believe. Things I should believe. I have to watch him close. Watch him close. Did you see his eyes, Zencha? Avo here. I think he's a little touched. But I stay ahead of him. Nearly. I have to. I'm Almighty Mishra. Zencha had enough of Retepe's babbling. She wasn't as fast as Urza, but she was fast enough to seize the word be Mishra by the neck of his tunic and whirl him around the nearest post. Damp debris from the thatching rained down on them both. You are not Mishra. You're merely pretending to be Mishra. You're a Retepe, son of Medea. And the day you forget that is the day you'll die, because he is Urza, and you can't hope to stay ahead of him. Do you understand? When a wide-eyed Pepe didn't immediately say yes, Zencha rattled his spine against the post. His chin bobbed vigorously. She released his tunic and stepped back. The great part of her anger was gone. I know who I am, Zencha, Retepe insisted, sounding more like himself, more like the youth Zencha thought he knew. I'm Rat, just Rat. But if I don't forget, just a little, when he looks at me, Zencha, when Urza the Artifact looks at me, if I don't myself believe I am, who you told me to be, then... He stared at the closed door. When I saw his eyes, I never believed that part, Zencha. It's not in the Antiquity Wars. Kael about Tanis coming to her, about how he'd seen Urza with the Might Stone and Weak Stone embedded in his skull. She thought it was all lies. Nice lies, because Tanos didn't want to tell her the truth. The idea that the Weak Stone or the Might Stone kept Urza alive. That's not even in Jarsals. There's only one source for the stuff about Urza's glowing eyes. Glowing with all the power of the Cyclics. 4 scraps of parchment bound by mistake at the back of the T-Mail Codex. They're supposed to be Tanos' deathbed confession. My father said it was pure apocrypha, but it wasn't. Urza's eyes. They are the Weak Stone and the Might Stone, aren't they? They're what kept him alive, if Urza really is alive. If he's not just something the stones have created. Waste not wants that. Zencha hadn't found Mishra the Destroyer. She'd found Mishra the Skeptic, and Mishra the battering pedant. She taught an unbelievable look. Don't ask me. Last night, you're the one who said that the Weak Stone was singing to you. Retepe winced and walked past the balcony without taking any. 2 eyes. 2 stones, Zencha continued. I thought you'd gotten lucky. I heard something. Not with my ears, but inside my head. He stopped and faced her, confusion painfully evident on his face. I called it singing, because that's the best word I had, and it came from his left eye. He sat down in the ash bucket, staying at his feet. Don't you want to know how I knew which eye it was? Measured by his expression, she wouldn't like the answer, but go ahead, enlighten me. It told me what it was, and that it had been waiting for someone who could hear it. When Urza said Harbin wasn't his son, it was. It was. Retepe made a helpless gesture that ended with his finger pressed against his temples. Not pain, but like the feeling that comes after pain. He stopped again, closed his eyes before continuing. Zencha, I heard Mishra. Well, not quite heard him. It was just there, in my mind, from the stone. I knew what Mishra thought, what I thought he should have said. Not his words exactly. My words. His eyes opened. He stared at Zencha with only a shadow of his usual cockiness. I know who I am, Zencha. I'm a Tepe, son of Medea, or just Rat now, because I lost everything when I became a slave. I was born almost 18 years ago in the city of Pinkar, on the 6th day after the Festival of Feuds, in the 6th year of Taberna's reign. I am me, but Zencha, pretending to be Misha the way he asked me to. He broke the stare. It's not pretending. I could get lost. I could get wound up thinking I'm Misha before it's over. Zencha bit her lip and sighed. But Pepe wasn't looking, didn't seem to have heard. Right now, where you're sitting there, can you hear the Might Stone singing Mishra thoughts in your mind? She shook her head. Only when I'm looking at Urza's eyes, or when he's looking at me. She began another sigh of relief this time, but she too became worried. I'm worried, Zencha. It's so weird. It's so easy to imagine him. And that's after just one night. By next year, when I'm supposed to go back to Efer and Pakar, you should have warned me. Trust Rat, or a Tepe, or Mishra, or wherever he wanted to call himself to go for the guilt. I didn't know about the singing. I knew about the eyes. Where they come from anyway. And I did warn you about that. But singing, and Mishra, beyond the Antiquity Wars, I didn't know anything about him except what Ursus told me. And I guess there's a lot he didn't. The rest of Xancha's anger went with the admission. She leaned against a porch post, grateful that she was looking at her. All those times Urza had glowered at her, eyes ablaze. Had the voice of Mishra's Weakstone tried to make itself heard in her mind? Why, really, had she gone in search of a false Mishra? What had drawn her to Rotepe? She knew it was one to fulfill her plans, before she got a good look at him. Can I trust myself? Xancha had no assurances, not for herself or for him. I don't know. Rotepe folded his arms tightly across his ribs and shrank within himself. Xancha spent all her life with Phyrexians or Urza. She wasn't accustomed to expressive faces, and wasn't prepared for the gust of empathy that blew Rotepe to her. She tried to shake it off with a change of subject and a touch of humor. What were the three you were talking about last night? Rotepe wasn't interesting. A year from now, there won't be anything left of me. Will I be myself? I'm still me, Xancha answered. Right. We talked some about you. She should have expected that, but hadn't. I hadn't lied to you, Rotepe, not about important things. The Phyrexians are real, and Urza's the only one with the power to defeat them. But Urza's wits are addled, aren't they? And you thought you'd cure him if you scrounged up something who reminded him of his brother. You thought you could make him stop living in the past. I told you that before we left Medran. Are you as old as he is? Xancha found the question surprisingly difficult to answer. Younger, a bit, I think. You're not the only one who doesn't know who or what to trust inside. He told you I was a Phyrexian. Repeatedly, but since he thinks I'm Mishra, he's not infallible. The bacon was burning. Xancha scraped the charred rashers onto the plate and made a show of eating one, slowing time while she decided how to answer. You can't believe him. She took a deep breath inside it in Phyrexian squeaks, squeals, and chattering, as best she could remember, the first lesson she'd learned from the Vat Priest. Newt you are, and Newt you shall remain. Obey and learn. Pay attention. Make no mistakes. Rotepe gasped. That day in the spheres, when you cut yourself, if I had taken a knife from you, I'd bleed, no matter where you cut me. It would have hurt. You could have killed me. You were inside the sphere. I'm not Urza. I don't think Urza can be killed. I don't think he's alive. Not the way you are. You and I, Xancha? No one I know lives for 3,000 years. Closer to 3,400, I think. Urza believes I was born in another plane, and that the Phyrexians stole me while I was still a child, then compilated me the way they compilated Mishra. But that can't be true. I don't know what happened to Mishra. But with newts, you've got to be compilated while you're still new. Urza's never accepted that I was dragged out of the vat in a faint of flesh. So in addition to everything else, Phyrexians are immortal. To survive the compilation, newts had to be very resilient. Immortally resilient. But Phyrexians can die, especially newts. Just not of age or anything that born folks might call natural. And after 3,400 years, Urza still doesn't believe you. Urza's mad, Rotepe. What he knows, what he believes, aren't always the same. Most of the time he doesn't make any difference, as long as he acts to defeat Phyrexia and stops trying to recreate the past on a tabletop. Rotepe nodded. He showed me what he was working on. Again. Xancha couldn't muster surprise or irritation, only awareness. I guess, if you say so. Funny thing with the Weakstone, I get the sense of everything that happened to Mishra. He fell silent until Xancha looked at him. You're half right about what happened. Urza's half right too. Phyrexians wanted the Weakstone. When Mishra wouldn't surrender it, one of them tried to kill him. The Weakstone kept him alive then, and even when they took him apart later, but it couldn't keep him sane. Rotepe strangled a laugh. Maybe burning his own mind was the last sane thing Mishra did. After that, there are only images, like paintings on the wall, and waiting for Urza to listen. And now, Mishra or the Weakstone, or both of them together, have you to speak for them. So far I listen, but I speak for myself. What does that mean? Retepe began to pace. He made a fist with his right hand and pounded against his left fist. It means I'll do anything I have to get my life back. I wish I'd never seen you. I wish I was still a slave in Medran. Tucked down Garv only had my body. My thoughts were safe. I didn't know the meaning of powerlessness until I looked into Urza's eyes. I'm as dead as he is, as Mishra, as you. The self-proclaimed dead man stopped beside the bacon platter and ate a rasher. I'm not dead. No, you're Phyrexian. Retepe resorted between swallows. You weren't born. You were immortal when you were decanted. How can you even be dead? Zaja noticed question. A year, Retepe, or less. As soon as Urza turns away from the past, I'll take you back from the Inkfell Pakar. You have my word for that. Silence then. Urza doesn't trust you. That stung. Even if Retepe was only repeating something that Zaja had heard countless times. I would never betray him. Or you. But you're Phyrexian. If I believe you, you've never been anything but Phyrexian. They're your kin. My father once told me not to trust a man who led a fight against his kin. Betrayal is a nasty habit that once acquired is never cast aside. Your father is dead. When it came to cruelty, Sancha had been taught by masters. Retepe stiffened, leaving the last rashers of bacon on the plate. He walked a straight path away from the college. Sancha let him go. She banked the fire, ate the last of the soggy bacon, and retreated to her room. Her treasured copies of the Antiquity War offered no silence, not against the turmoil she invited into her life when she brought herself a slave. And though there was no chance that she'd fall asleep, Sancha threw herself down on her mattress and pillows. She was still there, worried, lost in time, and wallowing in an endless array of painful memories, when she sensed a darkened thing, and heard a gentle tap on the door. Are you awake? If Sancha hadn't been awake, she wouldn't have heard Retepe's question. If she'd had her wits, she could have answered him with an unmoving silence, and he might have gone away. But Sancha couldn't remember the last time anyone had knocked on her door. Sheer surprise lifted her on her elbows, revealing her secret before she had a chance to keep it. Retepe crossed her threshold and seated himself at the table on her stool. There was only one in the room. Sancha sat up on the mattress, not entirely pleased with the situation. Retepe stiffened. He seemed to reconsider his visit, but spoke softly instead. I'm sorry. I'm angry and I'm scared, and I'm just plain stupid. You're the closest I've got to a friend right now. I shouldn't have said what I said. And I'm sorry. He held out his hands. Sancha knew the signal. It was oddly consistent across the plains where men and women abounded. Smile if you're happy, frown if you're not. Make a fist if you're angry, but open your open hand for trust. It is as if men and women were born knowing the same gestures. She kept her hands wrapped on her pillow. Betrayed by the truth, he winced and lowered his hands. Not the truth, just words. I knew it hurt. You did it too. Call it square? Why not? Sancha offered her hand, which Retepe seized and shook vigorously, then released if he was glad to have the original behind him. A suspicion he confirmed with his last mark. Urza's gone. I knocked on his door. I thought I'd talk to him, ask his advice. A little bit stupid too. But the door opened, and he's not there. Sancha spun herself off the bed towards the door. He's gone walking. I didn't see him leave, Sancha, and I would have. I didn't go far not out of his sight. He's vanished. Planeswalking, she explained, leading the way to the porch and the door to Urza's larger chambers. Domeria is a plane. Moag. Vatralgs. Equilor. Sarah's realm. Even Phyrexia. They're all planes, all world, and Urza can walk among them. Don't ask how. I don't know. I just close my eyes, and I die a little every time. The sphere that I brought you here, it started off as armor, so I could survive when he pulled me after him. But you're Phyrexian. The Phyrexians, how do they get here? Ambulators. Artifacts. Sancha put her weight against the door and shoved it open. Not a moment's doubt that Urza was gone, but one of surprise when she saw that the table was clear. You said you saw him working at the table. Retepe barreled into her. keeping his balance only by grabbing her shoulders. He let go quickly, as if he had when their hands had touched. It was a battlefield. The dawn of fire. Can you tell where he's gone? Sancho shrugged and hurried to the table. No dust, no silver droplets, no gnats stuck in the wood grain, or strata on the floor. She tried to remember another time when Urza had cleaned up after himself so thoroughly. She couldn't. Phyrexia? Otepe asked at her side again. He wasn't ready for a battle. There'll be a battle, if he ever goes back to Phyrexia. No, I think he's still here. Somewhere on Dominaria. But you said among worlds. The westest way from here and there on Dominaria is to go between worlds. Did he mention Bacherat? Or Morvern? Otepe made a sour face. No. Why would anybody mention Bacherat or Morvern? Because the Phyrexians are there, on both sides of the war. I told him to go and see for himself. With all the excitement last night, I forgot to ask what he learned. That the Bacherati are swine, and the Morvernish are sheep? After so many worlds and so many years of wandering, Sancho tended to see similarities. But Tepa had a one-worlder's perspective, which she tried to change. They are equally besieged, equally vulnerable. The Phyrexians are the enemy. Nothing else matters. It was smelling them in Bacherat and Morvern that convinced me the time was right to go looking for you. Urza's got to hold the line in Bacherat and Morvern, or it will be too late. Otepe skulked. Why not hold line in Efro and Picard? The Phyrexians are there too, aren't they? I haven't talked to him about Efro and Picard. I did, he saw her gasp, and added, You didn't say I should have, or shouldn't have. When Zanja had hatched her scheme to end Urza's Magus by bringing him face to face with his brother, she imagined that she'd be setting the pace, planning the strategy until Urza's wits were sharp again. Her plans had gone right almost from the beginning, certainly since the burning village. When she came to terms with the error, Otepe attacked the silence. You didn't seem to know our history, so I tried to tell him everything from the landings on. He seemed interesting. He asked questions, and I answered them. He seemed surprised that I could because he said my mind was empty. But he paid the closest attention towards the end, when I told him about the Shraddha and the Red Stripes, especially the Shraddha in Avohir, and our holy book. I told him our family was religious, that if he really wanted to know, he should visit the temples of the Picard and listen to the priests. There are still wise priests in Picard, I think. The Shraddha couldn't have gotten them all. Enough, Repete! Sancho said with a sigh and a finger laid on Otepe's upper lip. He flinched again. They both took a step back. The increased distance made the conversation a little easier. Eye contact, too, if he'd been willing to look at her. It's not your fault. I shouldn't have told him about the temples. Sancho raised her eyebrows. Otepe corrected himself. I shouldn't have told him about the Phyrexians. I should have asked you first. And I would have waited to tell you to wait, even though there's nothing I want more than Urza to get moving. You did what you thought was right, and it was right. It's not what I would have done. I've got used to that. I warn you, it won't be easy. He'll come back, won't he? Urza won't just roll through Efren Picard, killing every website Phyrexian he can find. With the last look at the table, Sancho headed out. There's no second-guessing Urza the Artificer, Otepe. If he did, it wouldn't be a bad thing, would it? Killing all the red sites would lead to Shraddha without enemies. Sancho paused beside the door. You're assuming that there aren't any Phyrexians running the Shraddha. Remember that I told you about Bacherat and Morvish, the sheep and the swine? I wouldn't count on it. She left Otepe standing in the empty room, and had gotten as far as the wellhead, beyond the hearth, before he came chasing after her. What do you do now? Otepe's cheeks were red above the dark red stubble of a 2-day beer. Follow him? We wait. Zanshan nodded the winch and let the bucket drop. Something could go wrong. All the more reason to wait, she began cranking. We'd only make it worse. Urza had never heard of Efren Picard. He didn't know where it was. He doesn't know our language. Hansha let go of the witch. What language do you think you two have been speaking since you got here? Otepe's mouth fell open, but no sound came out. She went on. I don't know why he says our minds are empty. He's willing to plunder them when it suits him. Urza doesn't know everything, you know. You can keep a secret by just not thinking it, or by imagining a wall around it. But in the beginning, or maybe all the time, best thing that Urza knows, what you know. Pepe stood motionless except for his breathing, which was shallow with shock. His flush had waned to pale waxy. Sancho cranked the bucket up and offered him sweet water from the ladle. Most of it went down his chin, but he found his voice. He knows what I was thinking? The Weakstone? And Misha? How I thought I was outwinning Urza Artificer? Avatar's mercy. Sancho would fill the ladle and drank. Maybe. Urza's mad, Retepe. He hears what he wants to hear. Whether it's your voice or your thoughts, he might not hear you at all, but he could. And that's what you've got to remember. I should have told you sooner. Do you know what I'm thinking? Only when your mouth is open. He closed it immediately, and Sancho walked away, chuckling. She'd gone about 10 steps when Tepe raced past and stopped facing her. All right, I've had enough. You're a Phyrexian. You weren't born. You crawled out of a pit. You're more than 3,000 years old, even though you look about 12. You're dressed like a man, a boy. You talk like a man. But influence a tricky language. We talk about things as if we were men and women. A dog is a man, but a cat is a lady. Among ourselves, though, when you say I did this or did that, the form's the same, whether a man or a woman. Usually the difference is obvious. He swallowed hard, and Sancho knew what he was thinking before he'd opened his mouth again. Last night, when Urza talked about you, he said she and her. What are you, Sancho? A man or a woman? Is it important? Yes, it's important. Neither. She walked past him and didn't break his arm when he spun her to face him. That's not an answer. It's not the answer you want, she wrenched free. But Urza, why? Phyrexians are a tricky language. There are no families, no need for men and women, no words for them either, except in dreams. I have no need for those words until I met a demon. He invaded my mind. After that, because of that, I thought of myself as she. Urza, Atepe's voice hardened. He was indignant and angry. Sancho laughed. No, not Urza. Long before Urza. So you and Urza... Urza? You read the Antiquity Wars, didn't you? Urza didn't even notice Caleb Ben Krug. He left Atepe gaping and closed the door behind her. Thank you for listening to Chapter 11 of Planeswalker. Please like, subscribe, and follow on YouTube and your chosen podcast platform. Thanks for listening.